Welcome to Giant Cocktails, a podcast where two lifelong fans talk about the San Francisco Giants while drinking homemade cocktails. Now, here are your hosts, Ben and Matthew Henry.
Welcome to another episode of Giant Cocktails. I am your host, Ben Henry, alongside my brother, the Marplot, Matthew Henry. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm good. Marplot.
Yeah.
Mar. It could be either C or bad. Like, so trying to break this down like you would in English class, you know? So, and then a plot would be like maybe something you're planning to do. So a bad plan. I'm a bad plan?
A bad plan. You are a bad plan. Yes, you cracked the code, Matthew. You're a bad plan.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Right.
No, Matthew, no. You're more dastardly than that. You aren't. You're a plan ruiner.
Yes, I am.
You ruin other people's plans. Mm-hmm. When people see you coming, they go, "Oh no!"
I'm a spoiler?
Yeah, yes. There it is. You're a spoiler, Matthew.
Because that's all I have. That's all I have now is to spoil other people's success. Because I sure ain't going to be successful.
Well, let's face it, Matthew. At the point you are in your life, the chances of success are low. Don't get me wrong. I'm right there with you. You know, it's
says the guy who's going to substitute teach.
That's right. Talk about Marplot.
Those poor kids.
Yeah, Matthew, you're a Marplot just like the San Francisco Giants. I got to tell you, Matthew, I didn't think they had it in them. I thought they were going to go down there to San Diego and basically look like they did against the D-backs.
Well, they tried today. They tried.
They did try.
Like, wait, we've got this big lead. We got to do something about that.
That's right. Yeah, the bullpen was like, wait a second.
Well, Tyler Fitzgerald decided to.
That's true. Well, do you blame Tyler? I know we're getting a little far afield here, but like when you see Marco Luciano camped under a ball, you're probably like, I better get there.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't actually see the game as it happened, Matthew, because I was killing dragons.
Yeah.
I was killing dragons. Actually, my guy got swallowed by a kraken today, and then the combat was going on so long we had to stop. So technically, Matthew, for the next week, I am also in the belly of a kraken.
Maybe you could write a book.
Maybe I could. It'll be
Call
called.
Me.
Call me dead. That's what it's going to be called. Call me dead. But anyway, that is not what this podcast is about. We are not here to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, although that is an excellent idea. I should be the 10,000th. I think there are more D&D podcasts, Matthew, than there are baseball podcasts.
It doesn't surprise me.
Oh, that reminds me. I should check our stats in France, but I'm not going to do that right now because first, Matthew, I'm going to ask you our icebreaker question, and I promise it is baseball related.
Oh. I might be able to answer it then. Okay, good.
Yes. It's not even an icebreaker question. It's more of a philosophical question.
Okay.
It's like, does the Pope poop in the woods?
Mm-hmm.
Does, one hand...
Is the bear Catholic? Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah. Does one hand clap in a vacuum? I don't know. Anyway, it's like that. Okay, so here's the question. On Saturday, Grant McCray had 5 RBIs that he got off of 2 home runs. He had a 3-run home run and a 2-run home run. However, the Giants scored 6 runs. And the 6th run was scored on a Grant McCray at bat when he hit the ball into play. My question for you is, did Grant McCray drive in all of the runs on Saturday? Now, I'm not asking you, did he get 6 RBIs? I'm asking you, did he drive in all of the runs on Saturday? Yes or no?
You know, the baseball gods smiled down and decided that making 2 outs with 1 swing of the bats is punishable by eliminating a potential RBI. So no, he didn't. If it didn't, no, it didn't happen.
I see. So you're saying that the fact that he ruined the potential for 1 run means that he doesn't get credit for the other run.
You know, I don't make the rules. I'm not on Mount Olympus deciding this. But he did drive in the run. I feel like, and if they only won by 1 run, then you're thankful that he did that, right? It's better than a strikeout.
No, for sure, right? If he had struck out, or if he did what most San Francisco Giants did, strike out or pop out.
Well, and Grant McCray has the 2nd highest strikeout rate in the major leagues. So, him striking out was a big possibility.
That's true. That is true. And we should give him credit for that.
Yeah.
All right. I agree. Grant McCray drove in all of the runs on Saturday, even if the stupid bean counters don't want to let him have it. And if there's anything I know, the bean counters are the only things worse than the lawyers. Always telling me what I can't do, what I can't say, that I might go bankrupt or go to jail. Just always ruining my fun. That's the real reason I left corporate America, Matthew. The lawyers and the bean counters. Anyway, today is Sunday, September 8th, as we record this podcast. Your San Francisco Giants went 71 and... No, they went 3-3 this past week to bring their records back to homeostasis of 71 and 73, 2 games under 500. The D-bags, Matthew, they've been scuffling a little bit. You look at their win-loss ratio, their win-loss record for the last 10, and I think they're like 4-6.
Oh.
Although some guy
named...
Not because
of us.
No. Well, exactly. And the San Francisco Giants did not contribute to that in any way. I mean, I guess they won one of those games. And also on that note, Matthew, I forgot to bring this up on Wednesday, but I do want to announce that the Chicago White Sox did win another game since the last time they won a game. So now the Giants are not the last team to lose to the Chicago White Sox.
All right.
So that's good. All right. And then, most importantly, because it's the most recent, the San Francisco Giants went 2 out of 3 against the San Diego Padres. They're now 6-4 against the Padres in the season series, and seriously hurt their chances in the playoff race. Matthew, there's still a chance to knock one of these 2 losers out of it, right? The Marplot, the Giants can still be the Marplot.
Yeah.
And you know what, Matthew? Because I'm a Giants fan and because like this, I want that. I want that now. If that's the only thing I can have, I want it. I want it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't care if it's against the D-bags or the Padres. Either one will be fine. So I want that. And they made a good start this weekend, very unexpectedly, by hitting lots of home runs and scoring more than 5 runs. Well, they did it at least once. They did it twice. I can hardly believe it. The words are coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, wow, they did it twice.
They tried to give it away, but yeah, they did it. They somehow pulled it all together.
They scored what? Well, they scored like 11 runs off of 5 home runs in those 2 games, which is and of course the double play, as we already talked about. Right. How did they get their 7th run today?
No, a home run.
7th run. It doesn't matter. You know what matters, Matthew? We have a major announcement. Now, we pre-announced this on Wednesday.
We do have a major announcement.
We pre-announced this on Wednesday. We told all of you that finally the new podcast that we are been talking about launching for almost half a year now is coming. It's live. Well, I mean, it's live. It's not live. Like, well, anyway, it's coming. There's a trailer. You can subscribe to it right now. But first, you need to know the name of it. And the name of our new podcast is called The Perfect Sip. And you can find that by going to your podcasting platform of choice and searching for The Perfect Sip. And you will find a nice periwinkle logo that says The Perfect Sip Podcast on it. No, it doesn't. It just says The Perfect Sip on it. And that's us. We have a trailer in there where we it's us. We're doing the normal thing. We toned it down a little bit.
Yeah, we're trying to be all professional. We're trying to be like, you guys know us as the casual, fun people. We're trying to reach like some like people who are like, like normal. And
yeah, no offense to you all, but we're trying to reach a wider audience, so we're not quite as obnoxious, but we're still a little obnoxious. And if you like the happy hour show that we did last season, that show has been modified slightly, but moved over to The Perfect Sip. So you can find The Perfect Sip, and we will on your podcasting platform of choice. You can also find us on social media, where our username is Perfect Sip Podcast. All one word, no numbers, no letters, no underscores. And that is on both Instagram and Threads. That's all I'm willing to commit to managing right now. I will say this. The primary content is the podcast. The social media account is mostly about being a place where you can come tell me how dumb I am. Or Matthew. You can tell Matthew that there too. That too, and not just about baseball, but about cocktails. So you can find us there.
I think you should tell them what The Perfect Sip is all about.
The Perfect Sip is a podcast where we present one episode every week that is instructional in nature, where we talk about the art of home cocktail crafting. And this is definitely an amateur-focused show. We're not pros, and we're not targeting this at pros. We are hobbyists who have a significant amount of experience, and we are making this show for other hobbyists. That's the bent. And we have the Tuesday educational episode, and then on Fridays, Matthew and I get together and we compare a couple of recipes that we bring to the show, and those recipes relate somehow to the topic of the week. And the goal is to create a bunch of episodes at the beginning that are very beginner focused. So we are starting at the very beginning. The first episode will be all about what you need to know before you get started in the hobby of home cocktail crafting. And then we just work up from the bottom there, talking about basic things. If you're an experienced cocktail maker, then a lot of that information is probably redundant for you. But if you haven't gotten into the hobby, then this is perfect for you. Now, if you're also self-taught, maybe there are some things that you missed along the way. And so all of these episodes will maybe helpful and useful for you. And of course, the Friday episodes are just Matthew and I being our entertaining selves, which you seem to like because you're listening to this now.
Exactly.
And that's basically the gist of the show. The first 8 weeks are going to be all about the beginning. Being all focused on beginners. And what else, Matthew? Oh, the first episode will be coming out on the 17th of September, and then we will be publishing every Tuesday and Friday, so you can get us 4 days a week, at least for the last 2 weeks of September, because we're going to probably take this show down to once a week as we do in the winter. But anyway, The Perfect Sip Podcast, now live. You can go subscribe. And I will say this. The more of you that subscribe, the more that those guys will start showing it to other people. And that would be super helpful and super kind of you if you could, occasionally listen to an episode, or at least click on it and pretend like you're going to listen to it. And then, do us a solid and help us out.
All right. Yeah. So go download it. Go subscribe on the podcast listener of your choice. And that would be great. And start listening as we launch next week.
All right. That's the announcement. Matthew.
Yes. Oh, you got a cocktail all ready to do something with.
I do. But I'm not going to talk about that yet because it's not the cocktail time yet.
Oh, okay.
But I will say this: we're going to be talking about the Perfect Sip podcast pretty much all the time on this show now. So look, this is our ad. This is the advertisement that we're running. We're advertising our other podcast. So just get used to it. It's coming. All right, Matthew, it's time for the trivia question.
Today's trivia question, Ben, is courtesy of Sarah Langs on Twitter. She is an excellent baseball researcher and a great follow on Twitter if you don't already follow her. But so the question is around Grant McCray. So Grant McCray hit 2 home runs on Friday against the Padres, doing it in his 18th career game. So who was the last San Francisco Giant to have a multi-homer game in fewer than 20 games in the bigs?
Who was the last one to have a multi-homer game in his less than first 20 games?
In his first 20 games, yes.
Of his career?
Yes.
Rickard Fanida.
Okay. All right. You know, that's a good a guess as any, to be honest. That actually could be the answer.
I mean, it's these things, Matthew, like, we're going to talk about this later in the show, but, like, everybody just calm down. Okay? Just calm down. Okay? Okay? All I need to do is point to, like, a year or two ago and say Casey Schmidt. Okay? Just calm down. You know, Brett Wisely and his 2 home runs in February. Calm down.
Hey, at least these were in the regular season.
That's 2. At least they were. And Brett had a splash this year.
Yeah.
Before he regressed to the mean.
Oh, poor Brett.
Poor Brett.
I don't know. I still have hope that you'll be drinking Negronis at his Hall of Fame ceremony in Dexter.
Yeah, the clock is ticking, dude. Clock is winding down.
It is.
Isn't it time for the booze, boys?
Oh, right.
Oh,
yes.
dude.
Yes,
Dude.
It is time for the booze.
What are you drinking, Matthew?
Well, Bob, I'm drinking a drink called Corpse Reviver No. 2. And I felt like it was an appropriate cocktail to bring to the show today because the Giants won 2 out of 3, and they're still not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Now, they may only have 0.1% chance to make the playoffs, but they ain't dead yet. So the corpse is rising, and so that's what I'm drinking today, Bob. A Corpse Reviver No. 2. Don't ask me about No. 1. I didn't even go look at what that one was, but because No. 2 seemed something that I would like. Anyway, here it is. 1 ounce of gin, 1 ounce of dry orange Curacao, or Cointreau, if you will, 1 ounce of Cocci Americano. You could also do Lillet Blanc or Lillet Blanc if you would like. 1 ounce of lemon juice, and 2 dashes of absinthe. I must admit, I just took my spritzer and sprayed it a bunch of times into the cocktail shaker. But yeah, anyway, a little bit of absinthe. You're going to add all those ingredients to a cocktail shaker with ice. Give it a good shake for 12 to 15 seconds. Then you're going to double strain that into a chilled cocktail glass. No garnish necessary. And enjoy your Corpse Reviver No. 2. It is a very balanced and vibrant cocktail, and I'm really enjoying it as the Giants took 2 or 3 from the Padres. So that's what I'm drinking, Bob. The Corpse Reviver No. 2.
That's a tasty cocktail. What are you drinking, Ben?
Oh, first of all, Bob, I'm really sorry. I've been meaning to talk to you about the podcast thing. I didn't. So.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, awkward.
Yeah. We have a really small budget, dude, and I spent it all on the music. I'm sorry. So,
I wonder if Locked On Giants is hiring.
dude, I don't. You know how many ads those guys play on their show?
They definitely got more money than we do.
They definitely have more money than we do, but like, you know, I also know that we're higher in the ratings in a lot of those shows. So. So I don't know how much money they got. Anyway, point is, Bob, I'm really sorry. Season two, right? Okay.
You could always hope. That's right.
Yeah. As for you, Matthew, Corpse Reviver, really? Mathematically eliminated? What?
They're not mathematically eliminated. They revived 2 out of 3 from the Padres.
They're not going to be mathematically eliminated until like the last week of the season.
Exactly.
Because,
so
like,
you're telling me there's a chance.
Okay, wait a second, though. Is it the last week of the season?
They're 7 out, so yeah, it would be.
Well, they usually only play 6 games a week, dude. So that sounds more like 2 weeks. It sounds like more the last 2 weeks. I don't know. How bad is it? It's 7 games? Oh, God.
7.5 right now.
What is their elimination number? You know what? I don't want to know. Anyway, you know what? This isn't a time to be talking about corpses or number 2. Gross. It's a time to celebrate because we launched the perfect sip. Like,
woo! This is
we
a
did
big. I mean, I can't believe we did it. Ben has been talking about this for 6 months now, and and we finally got to the point where we're actually releasing episodes. This is amazing.
Right. I actually been talking about this for longer than 6 months, but like it felt like it was imminent for 6 months. But anyway, the point is we did it, and I'm drinking a French 75.
In celebration. Woohoo!
In celebration. That's right. Because, it's got champagne in it. And also it's one of my most favorites. I call every cocktail my favorite, so this is one of my favorites. And what is in a French 75? Well, we've actually done this on the show, but the last time that we did it was way back in the era where we weren't writing these things down. And so I didn't write it down. But I know what I made today, so I'm just going to say that. And that's what it is. It has 2 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. You put all of that in a shaker with ice, and then you strain that into a flute, a champagne flute, and then you top that with chilled sparkling wine. Now, 2 ounces, I did the 2 ounces thing because I wasn't really thinking that's probably too much. You probably need to tone all of those ratios down because your flute's going to fill all the way to the top. But what I did was I just drank that. And then once there was enough room to top it with like 3 ounces of champagne, then I put the champagne in. So, that actually turned out to pretty well. So that's how I suggest you do it. And that's what I'm drinking today, Bob, the French 75.
That's a tasty cocktail.
It is so good. And this one will put you on your seat, folks. So just, drink responsibly. But you know what? It's probably going to impact me as hard as the thing that I drank on Wednesday. I'm still, flabbergasted by that. That was a doozy.
All right. I think it's time to start talking baseball, though.
It is.
So we couldn't go a podcast without talking about Matt Chapman. Right? I mean,
no.
So Matt Chapman, the guy, actually, we were just talking about him, I think, on our last podcast about how underappreciated he was and what a great player he was and what he brought to the table as far as defense and games played and all that. I think Farhan was listening to us and decided maybe I should sign Matt Chapman then.
That's right, Matt, because that's what Farhan does. He listens to our podcast and then he does exactly what we think he should do. That's how this works. No, Matthew, I think it also has something to do with the fact that Matt Chapman was the best player on the San Francisco Giants this year and also one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball this year. And probably should have gotten that long contract that he was looking for in the last offseason rather than Farhan's discount offer, which was the only offer that Matt Chapman got. That it was at least, or at least equal to the other offers that Matt Chapman got. And I think that's what it is. I don't think it had anything to do with you and me, Matthew. I think it had everything to do with how great of a player Matt Chapman has been and was especially this season. And I think this is all about Matt Chapman being great.
Yeah, well, 6 years, $151 million worth of great. That's a lot of Negronis, Ben.
That is a lot of Negronis. I would drink a lot of Negronis for $151 million. Now, I wouldn't drink an imperil my health number, but I would switch every cocktail that I drink. This would just become giant Negronis if you gave me $151 million.
You would just sell out that way.
Yeah, I would just change the name of the show. You would be drinking Negronis too.
You would drink a Negroni every episode.
That's right.
$151 million.
And you would too, because I'd pay you off.
Oh, I totally would.
Yeah, and I know you would. For
Giant
way
Negroni,
less,
here we come.
for way less than $151 million too. You're so cheap.
I am. I don't need a whole lot to be happy, Ben.
No. But
I'm a frugal guy.
Yeah. I mean, this was really surprising to me, honestly. Although I guess it wasn't that surprising because we did hear discussion that the talks were going on.
Yeah.
Right.
I just assumed that it wasn't going to happen. I just assumed that they were like, oh, we don't want to do that many years, or we don't want to do it. And it was going to be him being, okay, thanks. And next thing you know, he's playing third base for the Dodgers.
I mean, that's true. That did seem like a distinct possibility because that was very Farhan-like. I think the difference is that where the Giants are in the tenure of Farhan Zaidi, right? They need to start laying down some long-term players. This isn't the longest contract that Farhan has signed, right? Because I think Jung Hoo was also 6 years.
Yeah.
So this equals that. It is the second biggest contract in San Francisco Giants history. Only Buster got more money than this. But, I mean, inflation and all that sort of stuff, so it's not quite the same as that, right? Because Buster's contract was, 8 years ago. I can't remember when that was. But anyway, point is, I guess the question there, Matthew, is that where does this leave the Giants? Like, where do the Giants go from here? I mean, in terms of what does this say about the future of the San Francisco Giants, right? This is a huge outlay of money. They've just said that this is going to be our third baseman for the foreseeable future. Ideally, they'd like 6 years. Is he going to be a third baseman when he's 37?
Yeah, there's always a risk in longer contracts that the value is going to be a lot lower towards the end. But he's averaging $25 million a year, something like that. So I think in that respect, in 6 years, $25 million is not going to be that much.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that everybody needs to remember about these things is that these contracts always get smaller and smaller in value, right? So in a lot of ways, what you worry about is somebody becoming sort of like a dead weight player, more so than you care about how much money is being spent on that player.
Well, I think I read somewhere that a $25 million today was like $16 million 6 years ago.
Yeah, the last few years have really...
So that's where you're kind of looking at. It would be like a $16 million contract today. And you're like, okay, they could swallow $16 million on a bad contract, right? Or the player's not performing.
That is true. Yeah.
I'm not concerned about it, I think. And what's interesting, no opt-out. So he will be a Giant for the next 6 years. Jung-Hoo Lee, I'd forgotten, actually has an opt-out after 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So there's that. This is the longest in terms of no opt-outs for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it says is that the Giants are establishing their core.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and so the question, here's what I will say: the length of this contract does not bother me. Right. Because I believe that Matt Chapman is going to be a valuable player for the next 3 or 4 seasons. And it really, at 31, he is the best defensive player that besides Patrick Bailey, that I have seen on a daily basis since I think, Brandon Crawford in his prime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He is that good, and he's doing it at age 31. So I'm really not that concerned about the fall off that you're going to have on the defensive side. And it's really Matt Chapman's defense that takes him from a very good player to an elite player, right? Yeah. He is a well-rounded player. And it really looks to me like the defense will hold up, because usually that's the first thing to go on a player. And he still hits the ball harder than most Major League Baseball players. And yeah, he swings and misses a lot, but you know what? What we have seen from Matt Chapman this year on the offensive side is very, very much in line with his career numbers. What I also like about this is he seems to have done reasonably well in Oracle Park, right? And I think that's because he's a right-handed power hitter, right? We always get our panties all in a bunch over these left-handed superstars, and then we get all heartbroken when they don't want to come play here. And that's because they all know they're not Barry Bonds, right? And they don't want to play an Oracle because, by the way, they've seen what the numbers are for left-handed hitters in Oracle, and they're not great. So maybe we should be focusing more on the right-handed power bats, especially when it comes to free agents. And then we home grow our left-handers like Bryce Eldridge.
Yeah. Well, I think that speaks to his... when you say building a core and starting to kind of build a foundation, I think you have to have some core players around to lure other free agents, right? I mean, other free agents are not going to want to come to a team that has a bunch of unproven young players. So you got a guy like Matt Chapman, anchoring third base for the next 6 years. I think that sends a message to other potential free agents that the Giants have a strong core, and hopefully they can build on that with guys like Patrick Bailey and Jung-Hoo Lee, and all of a sudden you've got players that maybe will be appealing to a potential free agent like Juan Soto or someone like that, and they can also see that someone like Matt Chapman has had success, so they could too in that ballpark. So I think it was a great signing. I think it sends a good message to both fans and to the Giants players, as well as potential free agents. Like I said, that the Giants mean business and that they're going to take care of the players that have done well for them. So I think that it was a good signing, and I'm kind of excited to have a Matt Chapman for the next 6 years. I think it'll be, I think by the time he's done, he'll be certainly a forever Giant that will be, fans will really, really love. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play in the black and orange for a long time now.
I agree. And what I think what I really like about all of this is a guy who wanted to be here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just this year, but I mean, that's like why he chose the Giants, and that's why he took this particular contract.
Well, that's a good point, though, because Scott Boras is his agent and doesn't normally sign extensions before they hit the open market. And so I think that's very telling that they did this, because Matt Chapman must really want to be a Giant and basically told Scott Boras, who works for him, to say, get this done.
Well, and that's exactly, yeah.
So, yeah. No, go ahead.
That's exactly what Boras said in the interview. He did an interview with Pavlovich on Giants Talk. And he literally said that. That's what Chappie told us to do. Right? He wanted to be here. And he told us that he was very incentivized to make the deal to get done. And he was like, when the client wants to do that, that's what we do. And so, ultimately, I mean, it's a very, very good deal. It's a long-term deal. But again, getting back to that, which is like the important part of this is that Matt Chapman wanted to come here in the first place. And now that he's been here, he wants to stay here, to the point where he went to his agent and said, let's wrap this up right now in September. Let's get this done. And I think that sends a huge message to other players, right? That somebody like Matt Chapman wanted to be here, came here, and then said, yes, I made the right decision. I want to make this a long-term thing. And I don't think that should be overlooked. I think that's a huge part of this. And, I do I do question, what does this say about the state of the front office, especially given the poor performances recently? I think this does mean that Matthew Farhan is guaranteed at least another year.
Oh, that's interesting. I could see that. Going back, though, before I talked about that, I just Matt Chapman wanting to sign before the free agent period opens. I got to feel like last year's drawn out free agency probably wore on him. And he didn't want to do that again. Not knowing where he was going, getting into spring training really late, all those things that, baseball players are a creature of habit, right? They've got routines and they've got things that, and I think all people kind of want to know where they stand, from one day to the next. And so I think that probably played into it as well, because a lot of Scott Boras clients had rough off seasons last year. And so he probably didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah. But he wouldn't have wanted to stay here, right, if he didn't like it here.
That's true. Yeah. But you're mentioning Farhan and getting another year. I frankly thought he was going to get another year all along, but I think this does kind of solidify that. I mean, ownership is having to approve that contract, and then I think that his this is one part of a foundation that maybe that Farhan can build around. And then you got guys like you mentioned, Bryce Eldridge, coming up and, over the next couple of years. And so yeah, you've got all these young players, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that are, potentially going to be cornerstones of this franchise for a while. So maybe we're starting to see kind of the beginnings of a turnaround, the point where the Giants start to become more competitive and have their homegrown talent that they build around those free agents, which has been the plan for so long. So yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't give him another year at this point, and I think that's really telling for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm not convinced. Right? Like, I'm not convinced.
But Ben, so today, and maybe this is time to segue into this. Today the Giants had a really young lineup that they went with today. I think, so, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I think if that continues, if they continue to play the young guys through the rest of the season, for one thing, they scored some runs with this young team today. But if they start to tank and they lose a bunch of games and they finish several games under 500 at the end of the year, at least they can say, look, we played the young guys. There's an excuse behind kind of the end record there. So I feel like we've got, I feel like that's probably part of the plan, right? Play the young guys so that at least it kind of deflects blame. We can talk about the potential of next year, which I think fans right now, we've talked about it. We want that. We want to see the young guys over Michael Conforto and Yaz and all them. We like to see these young guys, and today they kind of delivered. Conforto was the DH, but we had a really young athletic outfield. Encarnacion was playing first base. It was definitely a younger outfield. And so, yeah, I feel like that's probably where they're going to head for the next few weeks. And I'm, for one, excited about it. I want to see these young guys play, including Grant McCray.
Okay. Yeah. Grant McCray, the new hotness.
That's
he's
right.
Going to Hall of Fame. Matthew, he's going to be a Hall of Fame. He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer. Are you going to drink a Negroni at his Hall of Fame induction ceremony?
I'm going to sneak in to the Hall of Fame thing. I guarantee it right now. I'm not even going to buy a ticket. I will buy a ticket, but I will also sneak in. And if I have, by sneaking in, I'll use my ticket. But I'm not going to get arrested. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not going to get arrested
for Grant McCray. Yeah.
Grant McCray's Hall of Fame induction. But I will go, and I will be drinking a Negroni there, even if I have to smuggle it in. I guarantee you, if Grant McCray makes a Hall of Fame, I'll be there.
All right. You heard it here, folks. Grant McCray. Because right now, Ben, he has one home run for every 14 at-bats.
Oh, yeah.
Which would place him 6th overall in the majors if he were qualified, right between Juan Soto and Marcelo Zuna. Okay, that's how good he's been over the last few weeks.
Wow. So you're saying he almost fits in with Butler and Rooker.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Don't even get me started about the Oakland A's. Okay. I look at that and I'm like, okay, they just do it, right? We are begging and talking about it and dreaming about it. And then they got two guys that are hotter than Soto and Judge combined. Like, it's just,
how is that organization better than this one? Like, how is this possible?
Oh,
how is that happening?
I don't even want to think about it. I don't,
like nobody's cheaper than them. Nobody's cheaper than them, and they just keep just digging them up, right? And
maybe they'll trade it to us in a couple years. Maybe that's.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, getting back to Grant McCray. First of all, he's been. I don't want to understate what he's done. It has been amazing and fantastic. I do want to pump the brakes a little bit on it's going to be a crowded outfield next year with Ramos and Matos and McCray and Jung-Hoo Lee. Who are the starters going to be? Because Grant McCray had a good 20 games, right? I understand the excitement, but man, we have seen so many players of every age have a great 20-game stretch. What I need to see is I need to see it for longer than 20 games, which means a couple things. First of all, and the main thing is that he needs to be given the opportunity to play for more than 20 games, which is not something that this organization has been very good at, right? Only now that they're completely out of the race are we starting to see these guys finally make appearances. And I think we're still going to see way too much Yastrzemski and Conforto for the rest of this year. I guarantee you we are. Way more than we should. Those guys should never play. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know. They are very good players. They're definitely better than these young guys. But we should not be seeing them on the field at all. We should only be seeing the young guys who are going to be huge parts of this organization. And quite frankly, we should have seen more of them all season.
Well, I agree. I think it would be a disservice to next year's team not to have these guys get as many at-bats this year as they can. And, we already know what Conforto and Yaz can do. We don't know what Grant McCray can do over a long period of time. We don't know what Luis Matos can do. So these are guys that need to play and get that experience because that will help the 2025 team more than having Conforto and Yaz play every other day or so. So I'm with you. I think that they need to do that. But I do feel like today was a good start though, Ben. And I actually looked up like how many games played by the Giants in the lineup today. So the starting lineup. So the starting lineup had, well, let me just go through the lineup today. Grant McCray had 19 games, okay, career games. Heliot Ramos, 137 career games. Matt Chapman, 1,007. Michael Conforto, 998, which means his next game, because this was before today's game, so next game is going to be his 1,000th game played. Fitzgerald, Tyler Fitzgerald. I don't. Tyler Fitzgerald, 90 career games. Gerard Encarnacion, 44 career games. Luis Matos, 118 career games. Marco Luciano, 34 career games. And then Kirk Casale, 535. But if we had Patrick Bailey starting, it would have been 120 games or whatever. So I think, and then not to mention our starting pitcher, Spencer Bivens, had 19 career games in his second career start. So it was, I think the young guys, 2/3 of the lineup had under 550 at-bats. Okay. Or I'm sorry, career games. So I would love to see that continue. I think that this is, and they scored 7 runs today in this lineup. So, why not keep throwing them out there and letting them play? I thought it was interesting they put Gerard Encarnacion at first base today just to get his bat into the lineup. So we had Canna and Wade Jr. both on the bench, so Encarnacion could play. But good. Yeah, those are the guys we need to see. Let's see what they can do. And Encarnacion, not a good first baseman. He had an error today. But still, they wanted his bat in the lineup, and I think that was a good call because who cares if he makes an error. So I think the youth movement has started, and I'm here for it. Let's see them play more guys like that because I like today's lineup, and I want to see it continue.
I agree. I mean, I do want I want to see it continue as well, but that's because I wanted this all year, right? Like as soon as you go out and didn't sign these guys that you wanted to sign, and then once you had the free agents that you got this offseason, you should have filled in the young players instead of focusing on these old guys. The one that really, really just gets me, and it's not because, it's Conforto, right? Because Conforto, he exemplifies everything that I hate about Farhan Zaidi's approach, right? He is one of these, he has one of these 1+1 contracts. He's this guy who comes off of the bargain bin because he was injured for a year. He plays and he's like, fine, but he doesn't represent the future of the Giants. Like nobody's going out there and buying a Conforto jersey not because he's bad, but because he's not going to be a Giant. You know it. And then it's because he's just a middling average player, which again is nothing to sneeze at. A great accomplishment for him in his life, but as for the future of the Giants, he's not part of it. And that's why it annoys, that's why I don't like Conforto so much, right? It's not so much him. It's just what he represents. And what he represents is this slapdash bargain bin approach to building a roster that also hurts the growth of your future players. He just gets in the way. He clogs everything up. And so that's why I dislike Conforto so much. And he was just like there all year, getting in the way of these players who have had breakout seasons. And I will remind you that the breakout of Fitzgerald and the breakout of Ramos, while great, was not something that Farhan Zaidi and his whole regime foresaw. Because if they did foresee it, he would have been on the roster on opening day. If Bob Melvin knew how good Tyler Fitzgerald was, he would have done more than make him his relief pitcher in the first half of the seasons. Remember that, folks. That's what Tyler was famous for this season, was all of his relief pitching. And he was one of the better relief pitchers, too, I'll add.
That's what bothers me about this, is that they had no idea how good these players were. There was no plan. There was no, these guys were replacement players in their mind and there was no pomp and circumstance for bringing these guys up and they were going to be the next wave of great Giants players. They were like accidents. And that just bugs me that, to go sit there and be all holier than thou that we know what we're doing. And yet all these players that they're playing now that they've seen be good were accidents. They weren't like, these are the guys that we know are going to be our next generation of Giants players. They were just good enough to get into the lineup because that's all they had. And then, oh, wow, they're better than we thought. So until they announce Bryce Eldridge with all, I'm sure there'll be trumpets and, confetti and all that whenever he arrives, but they haven't had anyone like that. And so that's what frustrates me. And just, we haven't been able to develop that really great rookie like, Jackson Holiday and the Orioles and how they were just, he had his little ups and downs, but there was a lot of excitement about him, just those kind of players Giants have never seemed to have. And we kind of bumble and stumble into some good rookies. And so I'm ready for a little stability, a little bit of yes, these are the guys that are going to play and they know who's going to be good. And we haven't seen that yet. So I'm tired of kind of what's been happening lately.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's also commit to these young guys, right?
Right.
There are right now, as of this moment, Matthew, there are 10 players on the major league roster, either the IL or the 26-man roster, who are 25 and younger. There are 10 of them out of 32 players because the Giants got 8 guys on the IL. So of those, 10 players are 25 or younger, which roughly is 30%. Now, when you look at how many plate appearances those players have had throughout the season, it's 29%. So they roughly reflect that. In terms of batters faced, it's only 24%, right? And a lot of that, though, comes from, Kyle Harrison and mostly Kyle Harrison, right? Because he has been one of the few young players that they trusted to be on the major league roster. And so he's carrying a huge bulk of that. And then the rest of it has come from Ramos and, not Tyler Fitzgerald, because Tyler doesn't even fit into that mold. Because Tyler, as great as he's been, having one of the best rookie years, he's 26. He's 26.
He old.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, Matthew, I'd love to be 26 again. That almost sounds too young. I gotta tell you, being 40 was awesome. Because it's then I knew everything so well. But I was still just young enough to do it well. God, to be 40 again. Anyway, so Tyler Fitzgerald is 26. And that's kind of my problem with all of this is just the Giants just haven't done a great job of advancing these guys quickly enough and with the skills that they should have by the time they get there. Marco Luciano. And then, they just haven't done a good job of developing players. And that's the whole crux of this thing. If Farhan doesn't do a good job growing drafted and international free agents, then this whole thing is a failure. And I think where we are right now is we're like, okay, the youth movement has finally arrived and it will take over in 2025, like it or not. And that's why I think, yes, Farhan will get 2025. But there's part of me that's worried that everything is going to be laid bare in 2025. And we're going to find out whether it works or not. And I'm not optimistic. So I'm glad that Matt Chapman has been signed and that we have a name to put on the back of a jersey besides Logan Webb. But the jury is still out on whether or not this thing has been a success.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, I guess that's where the jury doesn't get to decide until, a year from now, maybe.
August 2025, Matthew. That's what we said. August.
That's right. We'll see if Farhan still has a job in August of 2025. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Maybe we should answer the trivia question.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why.
It's
Rickard Finita.
So today's trivia question was, who was the last San Francisco Giant to have a multi-homer game in fewer than 20 games played in the Bigs after Grant McCray hit his 2 home runs on Friday? The answer is Trevor Brown.
It's not even a real name.
Who was Buster's backup in 88 games over 2 seasons in 2015 and 16. I didn't even remember this guy. I was like, Sarah, you're wrong. I don't know what that name's on the list.
Well, look, she just has a database that she does a query into.
I went and looked. Yeah, he played 75 games in 2016 but he was the only other catcher on the roster that year besides Buster. So he was the backup catcher. So, Trevor Brown. And then after that 2016 season, never made the majors again. So that was it.
They made the playoffs that year, and then they had no bullpen, and it blew up on them in the Cubs series. Why do I not? I remember that. I remember that season. Why do I not remember Trevor Brown? I remember Rickard Finita. I don't remember Trevor Brown. That's because Trevor Brown, what a boring name. No offense, Trevor. Forever Giant, Trevor Brown. Rickard Finita. That's why I remember him. It's the name. But man,
yes, and Shiyoshi Shinjo. I mean, those.
Yeah, are right. Yeah, those are the names I remember. But Trevor Brown, nope, gone. Sorry, dude.
Same. I had to look up, but he does exist. He did play. All right. Well, looking ahead to this next one. Well, we still we have the Milwaukee Brewers starting on Tuesday. And
them
it seems
again.
like we just saw them. I know. It seems like we just saw them. But they're at home now. So maybe we could continue some Giant magic.
Can we spoil anything for them? I think they're way far ahead in the division. This is boring.
Yeah, there's no spoiling nothing for them.
There's nothing we can do for them. Okay, the young guys better play every single inning in that series. If Conforto and Yastrzemski shouldn't smell the grass.
Yeah. The Brewers are 9 games up on the Cubs in their division, so there's no way they're losing. It doesn't matter what we do. Maybe they'll start resting some guys. Maybe we'll kind of
Well, I don't care what the Brewers. I don't care whether we. I don't care. Let's beat them. Let's win. Yeah, let's win. Yeah. But let's win with the young guys.
That's right. Exactly. So famous players, or not famous players, who have played for both teams. Rob Deere. Who was a Milwaukee great?
I know he was.
He
played for the Giants.
He did. Travis Ishikawa, of course, was a Brewer, and Ernie Riles.
Oh wow!
And Ernie Riles, the significance of him is he hit the 10,000th home run in Giants franchise history on July 9th, 1988.
That's right. I remember that.
I do too. Yeah. So that's the only reason I remember Ernie Riles. He hit the 10,000th home run, but he was also played for the Brewers at one point. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. Don't forget to follow us on the socials at Giant Cocktails on Twitter, X, Twitter, whatever, Threads, Instagram, and Mastodon. Also, don't forget that you can listen to us on YouTube and hit that subscribe button and the bell to know when we are published. You can also listen to us on Spotify, where you can now leave comments. So Ben can read them and chuckle. So go tell Ben how devastatingly handsome he is. That would make his day.
That doesn't make me chuckle. I mean, facts don't make me laugh.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And don't forget to rate us on the podcast platform of your choice. Go give us a 5-star review. That would be very, very much appreciated. Well, I think that's going to do it, folks. Ben, it's been good chatting with you. Until next time, cheers, my friend.
Hold.
No, not hold. Cheers. Cheers, my friend.
M.P. Parnell? Maparnell. Maparnell says, you guys platoon the cocktails podcast so you could stay competitive while rebuilding your farm system. Liquor cabinets.
Ooh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, that is a good analogy. Yeah, but now we're branching out. Like, it's time to call the young kids up, because also go subscribe to the Perfect Sip podcast. Go listen to our trailer. And all of that. And thank you for commenting, MP Parnell. Maparnell. Maparnell. Your avatar is so tiny on this comment, and it looks like you're wearing a nice jacket, and you look like a fine looking young man. Anyway, thank you for commenting. Cheers, Matthew. Bye, everybody.
God, thank God. Goodbye. I mean, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Giant Cocktails Podcast. Until next time, bottoms up.
All right, I'm going to say to him, good analogy. But my liquor cabinet is strong.
I got a first class liquor cabinet myself. I got the Dodgers of liquor cabinets.
Nothing but diamonds in there. And then I'm going to be like,